We need to talk. We need to have a real conversation. We're at the quarter pole or thereabouts of the 2022 NFL season, and you're going to start hearing conversations about who's the front runner for MVP, who's the front runner for Coach of the Year, who are the best teams in the league. All these things are going to take on a weekly tone, right? And that's the way it should be. But we got to talk about the MVP race specifically, because right now, on just about every betting book you can find, Josh Allen is the favorite at MVP, and that's fine. That's fair enough. Josh Allen is having a very, very good year. He's completed over 67% of his throws. He's second in the league in passing yardage at 1227. He's averaging 7.3 yards an attempt. He's got 10 touchdowns and 3 picks. He's having a very, very good year as a QBR of just under 77. Josh Allen is an awesome player, and he deserves all the kudos in the world for how great he's been and how well Buffalo's playing at 3-1. But he is not Patrick Mahomes, because nobody is Patrick Mahomes. Do you know that right now, despite 2 of the 4 games, the Chiefs playing a very sloppy offensive game by their standards, Mahomes is on pace to throw for 4,700 yards, to throw for 47 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions? That is how great Patrick Mahomes is. You would say by the Chiefs' standard, 2 of their 4 games, well below that standard. He's still throwing for an ungodly amount of yardage, all the touchdowns you could want, and oh, by the way, less than double-digit picks. At least that's the pace right now. And the Chiefs are playing through the teeth of their schedule. They have the next 3 weeks, the Raiders, the Bills, and the Niners. 2 very good defenses. One he ought to light up. After that, you start seeing a whole bunch of teams that he should have a lot of success against. Tennessee, Jacksonville, Houston, Seattle, the Raiders again. Not as hard as the early part of the slate. Patrick Mahomes is overlooked because he's Patrick Mahomes. He's great. And so it's so hard for him to impress, whether it be a voter or an opposing fan. It's normal. Very rare is the moment nowadays when Mahomes does something that actually shocks people. It's hard to shock people when you're the best at what you do every week, and you show it just about every week. It was telling on Sunday Night Football against Tampa Bay when Mahomes made his pirouette spin move at the 2-yard line before flipping a pass to Clyde Edwards-Helaire that it caught the nation's imagination, because it never happens anymore. It's hard to do it when you do it all the time. It becomes normalized. People expect it. When someone else in the league makes an incredible throw, it's rerun over and over and over on SportsCenter, on Twitter, wherever you find it, right? When Mahomes does it, sure, look, it makes the highlight reel, don't get me wrong, but it is expected of him. The bar has been raised in a way for Patrick Mahomes, and it has not been raised for somebody in a very, very long time. He is doing things that nobody's ever seen before. He was the fastest at 20,000 yards passing. Hit that on Sunday night. It barely even registered as a footnote because you just assumed he was going to be that guy. And the same will be true at 30,000 yards and 50,000 yards and so on and so forth. He's amazing, and so he doesn't get the attention. Look, Jalen Hurts is having a fine year. Okay, Jalen Hurts right now in some books has the same MVP odds as Patrick Mahomes. And I respect the heck out of the maturation process we've seen out of Hurts, who in his infancy looks like a really good young quarterback. He's averaging 9.1 yards an attempt, which is amazing. By far the best in the league. He is 5th in passing yardage, 14 yards ahead of Mahomes right now. He's thrown 4 touchdowns, and he has 2 picks as well. I think the world of the process that Jalen Hurts has shown us here, he's not Patrick Mahomes. And if you took Hurts off the Eagles and put another top 10 to 12 quarterback on that team, they don't look any different. They might even be better if you put a guy like Herbert on that team. Or if you put a guy like Josh Allen on that team, they'd be better. They'd be significantly better. No one would argue that. As much as Hurts has played well, nobody would argue that there are other guys who could step in and be better. Is there anybody who's making the Chiefs better? Is there anybody in the world who's stepping in and making the Chiefs better? And that's where the crux of the whole argument comes in. Most valuable. The Chiefs are a team that is maybe 500 with an average quarterback. Good defense. Solid weapons. Very good offensive line. Not a bad team by any stretch. Like if Kirk Cousins was their quarterback, they're a playoff team. But they're not a Super Bowl contender. And they're certainly not a Super Bowl favorite. They're all those things and then some with Mahomes. And when you look at Mahomes, it is impossible to argue there's anybody in the league that strikes more fear into an opposing defense or an opposing coordinator. You have to account for every throw from every angle, from every blade of grass on the field with Mahomes, all the time. Josh Allen's probably the only other guy that you'd have to say that about, maybe Justin Herbert. As great as Lamar Jackson is, you're not worrying about all those different throws from Lamar Jackson. You're worrying about his legs. That's for damn sure. And Lamar Jackson deserves to be in the MVP conversation. He is an awesome player, and he is the Ravens' engine unlike any other player for any other team. He has to do everything for them. But Mahomes is a better player than Lamar Jackson is. The only person in the world you could argue has the same impact on his team as Mahomes is Josh Allen. Because Allen is tasked with doing just about everything Mahomes has to do. The difference is Mahomes is more of a complete player week in and week out. It's a consistency with Mahomes. I mentioned at the beginning of this that the Chiefs for 2 weeks of the 4 have not looked particularly good by their standards offensively. And yet, when you look at Mahomes' numbers, he's first in everything. He's first in EPA, right? He's first in QBR. He's first in touchdown passes. And this is with a completely new supporting cast and against 2 really good defenses in the Chargers and the Buccaneers. What does it matter? They've had 3 of the 4 games on the road. None of it's mattered. And this goes back to the idea of it's impossible for him to impress. I'm sitting here saying, and I believe rightfully so, that 2 of his 4 games this year have either been average, I'd say the Chargers game, or underwhelming, the Colts game. The other 2 have been vintage Mahomes, the Buccaneers and the Cardinals. And yet, even with that, with his standard applied, he's by far the best player in football. There's nobody touching him at the quarterback position. There's nobody as dominant as him, as domineering at the quarterback position than Patrick Mahomes. If you want to argue Aaron Donald as far as just the best overall pure player at this position, fine. Aaron Donald has no shot at winning MVP. At the quarterback spot, there is nobody who tilts the field more than Mahomes, who scares you to death more than Mahomes. Don't ask me. Ask Buffalo in 13 seconds. Go ask Tampa Bay, who before they played the Chiefs had given up 27 points all year. And by the way, had faced Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers. And then saw Mahomes and gave up 28 points before halftime. Okay? That is the difference. And yeah, they ran the ball. And you know, part of the reason they ran the ball so successfully? Because everybody's terrified of Mahomes and nobody's playing the run. You constantly have to account for him all the time, every play. What could he possibly do here? And it doesn't matter. Nobody can stop him. Patrick Mahomes has had the best start to a career of any player ever. Ever. It's not close. In his career to this point, he has played in 67 games. He has thrown for 20,097 yards. He's completed 66% of his throws. He's thrown 162 touchdown passes, and he's thrown 39 picks. He has made the Pro Bowl every year as a starter. He is a first-team All-Pro, a second-team All-Pro, an MVP, a Super Bowl MVP, and a Super Bowl champion, and he's gotten there twice. And oh, by the way, the worst the Chiefs have ever done in his career is host the AFC Championship game, because he's hosted the AFC Championship game every single year he's started under center. And this year appears to be no different, with Patrick Mahomes sitting pretty, first in a litany of ratings, top 5 and everything else. Patrick Mahomes, underappreciated at times, overwhelming all the time. Right now, he should be your league MVP. Don't overcomplicate it. Patrick Mahomes is the most dominating player in the NFL.